Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I want to take a look at the 323 live patch notes. 323 live went out this Friday, so I think that was May 10th. Today is Monday, the 13th. You're probably going to be seeing this on Tuesday or Wednesday depending on when I decide to put it out. Small disclaimer on this, there is already as of recording, there's already a 323.1 PTU going out, which, as far as I know, has a lot of performance and stability stuff and some stuff in preparation for the Invictus launch week, which I believe is going to be this Friday, the 17th, if I recall correctly. So that's kind of a disclaimer on this. Also, CAG are doing, as far as I know, because I haven't seen this before, they're doing something different with the patch notes. As you can see, there is a link to full release notes, which they kind of have a whole RSI page dedicated to 323. In this video, I want to go over the patch notes that are on Spectrum, because that is the shortened version of patch notes, as CAG have called it. And this, what's on the RSI page instead of Spectrum, is sort of a longer version. It's more of a wiki from what I've read. It actually describes specific keybinds that they changed and also specific numeric values for the weapons rebalance and weapons reworks that they did with 323. So if anything that I talk about in the patch notes piques your interest, I would highly recommend you go check out this page and look at the specifics. As you can see, there is keybinds, and it's kind of a generally more wordy description of what happened in 323. I think the reason they're doing this is because the 323 is such a massive patch. They couldn't actually fit the patch notes on a Spectrum post. And I think this is actually a very good idea, because this is going to stay on the RSI page as a post forever. And they can actually eventually have a dedicated section for this in the RSI page instead of Spectrum, where you could find what changed with each patch and all the keybinds that they added. So that's kind of a little note in case you're looking for more information on things in the patch notes and you feel like the patch notes are a little bit short, because these Spectrum patch notes are actually very short now. So actually, let's get into it. So that's the 323 live with that build number. I'm not sure if they put out any hotfixes over the weekend. I literally came back home after a month away this Saturday. But here's right away some very important stuff. Long-term persistence is enabled. Replication layer is enabled. So we should be seeing some of the performance benefits of that. And more importantly, server recovery is enabled. So we should be seeing those please wait error screens in 323 live. I'm not sure how the performance on that is going to work out in the PTU. It was pretty slow on recovery, but maybe in live it's going to be a lot better. There is a partial wipe with 323 live. They have wiped all alpha UEC as far as I know. Also any rentals and refinery jobs, consumables, ammo, all the stuff that's not in long-term persistence. And everybody gets 20,000 starting alpha UEC, which I think is the standard, plus whatever is in your account. So depending on what starter pack you had, you might have had more money. Also, you can actually buy alpha UEC. I'm not sure what the current exchange rate is on the RSI page, but you can buy alpha UEC. Anyway, then there's the link to the full patch notes, the release notes. Again, if anything that I talk about here is going to be interesting, go check that out. There's a lot more information. I've actually, originally I considered making a video of the release notes, the full release notes, but it takes about an hour and a half to read, and I read out loud very slowly, so that would be a very long video. So in order to save everybody's time, I'm just going to do the short patch notes. So let's start with the features and gameplay. That's actually a good note here. 323 comes with major updates to default keybinds that have been long-standing. These main keybinds have been added to the in-game menu, as well as the new updated control hint system. Yes, 323, they have a lot of new keybinds. They moved a lot of keybinds. For example, quantum travel controls have moved from B to the mouse. So you left click to execute quantum jumps instead of pressing B. But there's a couple other things with interaction and so on. Characters, new. Character customizer, fully reworked with the ground up, with many new features and creative options. So that is the Biotic Corp character creator that they have shown off in ISC and SC Live. It is very cool. You can do a lot of things with it. I believe there is also a screenshot and a story contest right now going with create your character, post a screenshot of the character and give them a backstory. They are giving some ships away for the winners of that. I think they're just gonna judge it based on how cool the character looks and how good the backstory is. So if you like writing stories, I definitely just suggest you go take part in that, because I think it sounds like fun. Locations, new. Inclusion of major new points of interest and missions with distribution centers. So we have been hearing about distribution centers for a long time now. They showed them off at CitizenCon. As far as I know, with 3.23, we're not getting the full content with distribution centers because all the cargo and inventory stuff got pushed back. So that part is missing from distribution centers, but there is a bunch of combat missions. There is, I believe, deliveries, and there's also investigation missions, which are very cool. I played a lot of those in the PTU. They have you crawling through the ductworks in distribution centers, and it's very, very cool. AI, overhauled and more intelligent AI ship combat behaviors. Yes, AI opponents are now pretty good. If you get a good server, AI is pretty deadly in 3.23. New fauna, this is important though. So there is now animals in Star Citizen. Copian and Marok, including hunting missions and new harvestables. So there is this, one of them is this bird type thing on Hurston. And the other one is kind of a weird lizard wolf on Microtech, as far as I know. There are hunting missions where you can hunt down the wolf lizards on Microtech. In the PTU, it was a bit weird, but in live, I think it's okay now, where they actually try to attack you and they run away. So that's pretty fun. Doesn't pay very much, but it's definitely a new and interesting mission type. Let's see where they go with it in the future. Gameplay, lots of changes in gameplay. New Mobiglass Star Map FPS systems rework. So that's the full overhaul of the Mobiglass UI. So you got the new Mobiglass look, new Mobiglass apps, and the new Star Map. And you also get a player HUD rework. So we have a new player HUD for the visor and sort of the contact lenses that everybody's wearing. New EVA Tier 2 with much improved maneuverability. This is possibly my favorite part of 3.23. Finally, EVA feels like EVA, and it's less janky than it used to be. If you really want to put the new EVA through its paces, go to Crusader and pick up the PI Wanted mission. This mission has been I recommend this to all new players. This mission has been around for as long as I can remember. It takes you to the destroyed Kovalex station on Daymar, or above Daymar, and you have to navigate. It's sort of a navigation puzzle, and you have to break into some terminals, or not break into, but you have to gather information from terminals, and then break into some doors by finding the correct codes. And it is fully voiced. It's one of the few missions in game that are fully voiced, and there's actually multiple outcomes to this mission, and there's a follow-up mission. But I will let you discover that on your own. Updated player interaction experience, player visor and lens HUD rework, which I was talking about just now. New personal interaction inner thought systems, so it changes how the F interaction and F menu works. I think it's a big improvement. Helmet equipping and removal. It still doesn't have the animation in placing the helmet on your belt, but you can now do it and it works. Additional new player experience cities and more. So they expanded the new player experience, I believe, to every landing zone now, I believe. So you can start wherever you want and still have access to the tutorial if you would like. New FPS loot screen for much cleaner and quicker looting experience. So since inventory menus are going to be going away once cargo elevators and item banks come in, this is going to be the new way we interact with containers and looting enemies. So that gives you that simplified equipping interface when you open a loot box or something. Interesting feature, needs some dialing in my opinion, but nevertheless it's a move in the right direction. New physical shopping UI, so this affects the item displays in shops in the verse. They have converted this so now it's a little less janky and it should consistently display. It also comes with some keybinds. So instead of having to click through a menu, I think you just hold B and it will buy the item for you. New reload improvements with ammo repooling and much more. The important bit is the ammo repooling, so if you have partially spent magazines in your inventory, you can repool those and you will have a bunch of full ones and the empty ones are going to discard. If you do a lot of FPS, this is a pretty useful feature. Reload improvements, I believe they refactored the reload logic, so the sort of empty reload doesn't happen anymore, so you reload and it doesn't actually reload. I still had that issue in the PTU, did not have it in live last night, so that's probably fixed. New dynamic crosshair and combat helmet experience. So this is the dynamic crosshair that everyone has been talking about. As far as I know, it only works with some types of helmets, and it gives you that dynamic crosshair where it shows the crosshair where the barrel of the gun is actually aiming, which is useful if you want to shoot on without aiming, I suppose. New reputation-based hostility. This one actually didn't receive a whole lot of attention, even though it's actually a very major change in reputation. So basically what happens, and I'm actually going to open up the expanded patch notes on this one because it's a pretty important one, and no one really talked about this. Just gotta find. So this is kind of the tier 0 of long-term reputation. Essentially, the current reputation system has been updated so that players can affect their long-term reputation with in-game organizations via means outside of missions, such as reduction of reputation for killing a member of that faction. So let's say you do bunkers around Hurston and you kill a lot of Hurston security. So this is going to reduce your long-term reputation with them, and that might affect certain behaviors of Hurston security towards you. If you have good reputation, they might be more forgiving for friendly fire. So if you're helping them clear bunkers and you accidentally shoot one of them, they might be willing to forgive you if you have a very good long-term reputation with them. On the other hand, if you have a bad reputation, they're going to give you a much harsher punishment for it. And this actually works even more in a more pronounced way with unlawful factions. So with unlawful factions, if you have a very bad reputation with them, so let's say you have a bad reputation with Ninetales, for example, they might attack you on sight, or they might have a more aggressive response to your attack on them. So this is very important. I don't think it received enough attention. Essentially, like I said, it's tier 0 of long-term reputation. We will see where this goes, but it will allow us to see the different behaviors over a longer term if reputation is not wiped for a longer time. Anyway, let's move on. And I apologize because the camera is in front of my monitor, so I can't see it. Weapons and items. So there's a lot of changes on this. Standalone salvage tool balance pass. So there is a standalone salvage and repair tool now. It is, I believe, faster and it can repair better than the multi-tool attachment. I haven't played with it all that much, but I figure it's a similar situation to the standalone tractor beam tool. Allowing FPS salvage and armistice. That's kind of an interesting change, in my opinion. So I suppose if you want to repair your ship while you're in armistice, and there is a ship you can take RMC from, you can do that now. I think that might be a prerequisite for persistent hangars to do this, so you can fix your ship while you're in the hangar. Still very interesting, though they are still not allowing ship salvage in Armistice, so if there is a lot of debris around the hangar, you can't clear that with a Vulture or a Reclaimer, which is a shame. Cure Life Medical Gun Polish. This might not sound like much, but it's actually a pretty big improvement on the medical gun. It mostly has to do with the little screen on it and where it's positioned. Essentially, they fixed some interaction issues, so it's now easier to set medication levels on the screen, on the little screen on the medical gun. Which, small improvement, but very, very big quality of life improvement, in my opinion. New ships and vehicles. Now we're getting somewhere exciting. New vehicles, Mirai Pulse and Mirai Pulse LX. So that's the new hoverbike that they showed off in ISC. So it's kind of a high-performance racing, Mirai style hoverbike. It's pretty interesting. I got a chance to drive it for a little bit, and it's fast. It's got a gun on it. Pretty fun concept, if you ask me. I'm not gonna pick one up, but still pretty cool. Added many existing ships to in-game ship shops. Very important because we were a little bit behind on some of the newer ships that were released not being available in game. Usually that's delayed by one major patch cycle, but I think right now we were one patch cycle behind on it, if I recall correctly. Also, I believe there was a rebalance to ship prices. I think we're gonna get to that in a little bit. And kind of a community demand has finally been fulfilled, and New Deal Ship Store in Lorville now has a second terminal, which probably one of the greatest changes in 3.23. And finally, Freelancer Series component updates. For those of you who didn't know, as engineering is going to be coming online and physicalized components are coming online, some of the older ships, like the Freelancer and the Connie, they need to have a pass on them to enable access to components for engineering and component swapping in your hangar. So I think Freelancer was one of them, Connie is the other one, and there's a couple more older ships that need to have either gold standard or the component update done. Okay, core tech. Yes, Vulcan is in beta now. Note, Vulcan renderer is currently in beta, and there are a few known crashes and issues that will require a future AMD or NVIDIA driver update that has not been released yet. If you run into major issues, you may want to swap back to DirectX 11. If the game crashes on launch after switching to Vulcan, you can reset this by deleting your shader folders in local app data Star Citizen. So Vulcan is now in game. It works. I've had some performance improvements, even though performance was not the goal with this release. It also allows upscaling with NVIDIA and AMD upscaling technologies, which is very nice. Improvements to volumetric clouds, visuals performance, water simulation, and all that good stuff. One note on Vulcan. If you're using Vulcan, it needs to pre-compile shaders when you first launch the game. You will see that it's going to be in your bottom left corner, a little pop-up that says compiling shaders X out of however many. You can launch the game while this is happening, but it will affect your performance negatively. So it's better to wait until this is done and then launch the game. I have tested this multiple times, and if you're creating your character, it keeps running and it doesn't affect the performance too bad, so you can just create your character while you wait, and then pretty much once you're done with your character, it's ready to go. We also have Some Tobii eye tracker improvements. I haven't looked into those too much, even though I have a Tobii eye tracker, but I haven't looked into it. But I believe it might be something to do, again, with Vulkan and some new core tech that's coming in. And right, replication layer split and server crash recovery. So that's the two big technical items in 3.23. Replication layer, sort of splitting that out from the game server into a separate service. It's eventually going to give us a little bit more performance benefits. Right now it's more of a structural thing, and it is a prerequisite for server meshing, essentially. And server crash recovery, if you haven't caught anything about that yet, essentially what it allows you to do is if a server crashes, rather than getting the 30k error and getting kicked out to menus, you will get a in-game pop-up that says error, please wait, and you'll be somewhat seamlessly transferred off to a new server and you can continue. As far as I know, there is one caveat to this, which is if you have any active missions while this happens, they will be abandoned. They will not carry over, which it will not result in reputation loss, as if you abandon the mission yourself. But if you were in a bunker or other trespass zone, this might give you a trespass crime stat, if that happens to you. So we talk about Vulkan, we talk about image upscaling with the DLSS. So that's image upscaling, not that important. It's enabled by Vulkan, essentially. Updated volumetric clouds visuals, so they look very nice and they perform a lot better. If you have a weaker computer, Orson is not going to kill it anymore, which is great. Water simulation and rendering improvements, so now we have water force reactions as they showed off at CitizenCon. Kind of a small feature, but very, very cool looking. And there's probably more that's going to happen in that area in the future. Okay, vehicle combat and experience, master, and operator modes. So this is the other massive change in 3.23. We have talked about it on the channel multiple times while 3.23 was in the PTU and while master modes were being tested. There are vast changes to vehicle combat and experience coming with 3.23. These new modes and updates are shown in major detail in the main node link above. So if you haven't tested master modes and if you haven't played the PTU, I strongly suggest you go read the full write-up on master modes and operator modes. But what is in the short notes, major IFCS changes, so they are rebalancing ship speeds and maneuverability to bring them in with the ship archetypes that they talked about that they currently have. So light fighters, medium fighters, corvettes, that kind of stuff. Master and operator modes. So the master modes, that refers to the SCM and nav modes in which your ship operates now, that you have to switch depending on what you're trying to do. And operator modes are pretty much the previous operator mode. They were just expanded because operator modes previously was just scanning and missile mode. Now they have added a flight mode for nav mode, which allows you to fly around in nav mode without quantum markers, which is useful if you want to fly fast but you're not quantuming anywhere. And they have, I guess, precision targeting is also a operator mode, but is listed here separately, so we will get to that. Persistent ship settings, very important, also a backer demand. So now if you set up your ship in a specific way, it should persist. Again, there were some issues with this in the PTU. Now they should be resolved. Precision targeting, pip changes, gimbal mode changes, ESP aim assist, and weapons tuning, sub-targeting, and much more. So precision targeting is a new mode which allows you to zoom in with your guns. I believe it slows down the rate of fire because now you have weapon spread. So if you fire for too long, there's going to be a cone of fire in which the shots are going to be spread into. So precision targeting slows down your rate of fire, which should decrease this effect. And that comes with gimbal mode changes, so no more auto gimbals on ships. That is now only a turret thing. Also, the N-1 approach is gone, so if you have a size 3 gimbal mount, it fits a size 3 weapon instead of a size 2 weapon. Aim assist changes weapons have been retuned again with the archetypes because they have ship archetypes now and weapon archetypes as described in, I think they had an ISC on this. So they have anti-ship, anti-material, and everything else going on. And they're trying to fit everything into those 3 brackets. Sub-targeting has got a rework, so we can now target individual components on ships, which is very useful, and much more, as described in the longer post. FPS combat overhaul, weapons, movement, and tech. So 3.23, that's the 3rd major change. There's a lot of stuff coming into FPS. FPS control keybind updates, yes, they moved a couple things around with selecting weapons, I believe. There was a full write-up in the full release notes. New scope sights, and weapon attachments. So yes, they added a couple things, but more importantly, they reworked all the scopes and sights that are in game. So now they are no longer blocked by armor, and they work a lot better. And I think they actually did some preparation work for what they showed off in the last week's ISC with night vision scopes. Obviously, there's still no night vision in 3.23, but I think there's some preparation work that's being done for a future release. And major weapon and FPS combat balance changes. There's a very long write-up in the full post with specific numerical values on what changed, but they basically rebalanced attributes and characteristics of every FPS weapon in the game, I believe. So things are going to have a little bit different rate of fire, that kind of stuff. You don't specifically have to worry about it, I think. One thing that they did change that might affect you is that they changed some properties of attachments. So I believe laser pointers now decrease weapon spread when not aimed. So that's something to keep in mind. But they have the full write-up going on. And finally, Arena Commander. So Arena Commander has been a big focus in the last couple patches because they are really trying to turn it into the PU test platform, essentially, where they can push new things for testing with experimental game modes. So big news, return of custom lobbies, previously referred to as private matches. So these went away almost 2 years ago, I think, where you could create a custom lobby with your friends and then launch into a custom battle without anybody else. That was gone for the longest time. Now it's back, so you can do that again if you want to play with your friends. It's there for you. Streaming tech enabled in Arena Commander. That's the second big change in Arena Commander. I talked about this in a video a couple months back. Essentially, what they did is they created a technology for themselves in which they can take object containers from the PU and stream them as an Arena Commander map. The major advantage in this is that they can just take any location in the verse, put it in Arena Commander, and create a game mode for it. They said they are using this for racetracks right now, but I believe they can pretty much do whatever they want. So if they wanted to run Siege of Orison, for example, in Arena Commander, they can now do it if they wanted to. New Engineering Resource Network Experimental Game Mode, Free Flight, Squadron Battle, and Duel. So the Engineering and Resource Network testing is going on as an experimental game mode in Arena Commander right now. There's a couple game modes in it. They're actively tuning it based on feedback they're receiving. So that one is very dynamic right now. So if that's something you're interested in, get a couple friends and have a try at it. It's very interesting. I haven't made a video on it yet because I'm waiting to see where engineering goes because the current state is very, very basic. There's lots of stuff missing. And right now it's mostly about resetting relays and closing doors. But we'll see what happens in the future. Added many new racing maps to Arena Commander. So they added not just racing maps. They added free flight maps and a lot of stuff with the new streaming tech from the PU. So just kind of new content for Arena Commander, basically. Many system and balance updates, including character customization for Arena Commander, VoIP-enabled map selection, gun rush, and everything else. So they kind of did like a general quality of life improvement. Yeah, the Arena Commander team has been... I was initially skeptical about what they were doing with the Arena Commander, but the Arena Commander team has been doing amazing work over the last year. They got so much done, and they actually brought the game mode into a very good state, in my opinion. So we will see where they take it further. And finally, we have known issues. So these are pretty important. Persistent Universe Tantrum Grimhex actor feature. Player corpses will not despawn at Grimhex. I was under the impression that that's a feature. Bunker elevator does not return up when called. So this is a big one, because a lot of people do bunkers, but I suppose if you want to avoid this, you can just do the distribution center missions. It's pretty much the same thing, just different location. There are no female social AI present around Lorville. That's an interesting bug. The ASOP terminals for ground vehicles at Lorville gates get stuck on infinite load accessing list of ships. So I guess don't spawn your vehicles at Lorville. Misaligned HUD markers with ultra-wide or TSR graphics upscaling enabled. Well, ultra-wide UI has been a problem for years, so I don't think that changes much. Using a med pen causes you to drop your weapon. That's, again, something to keep in mind if you do a lot of FPS. Internal transit elevator shows up when called, but doors remain closed, no carriage. So I guess double check elevators if you use one. Rock mining laser not activating. So this has been an issue for a long time, that the rock is basically unusable. I think there's been an issue in 323 and possibly in 321. If you remember when this started, post it in the comments, because I've been hearing rock miners complain about this for a long time now. Transit will intermittently desync off course. This is a very fun bug, and if you're not expecting it, it will give you a scare. Essentially what will happen is that if you're riding a tram in New Babbage or something, it will veer off out of the tunnel under the surface. But it's okay. As it arrives into the station, it snaps back in, so it's fine. It's not that big of an issue. Ship warning alert text is very small and can be difficult to read. I believe that probably ties into the upscaling and UI work. Can't repair, refuel, or restock at the Pyro Gateway jump point station. That's okay. There's really not much of a reason to go there right now, unless they do another jump point test, I suppose. Security checkpoint, elevator, viz area, and missing collisions. So that's distribution centers. So there's going to be some weird visual artifacts and no collision and security checkpoints, elevators. So watch out for that in distribution centers. Objectives can be soft logged by a player leaving bed before their objective record has been updated. I have no idea what that means, but I guess don't accept missions while you are in bed and you will avoid this. Backpack reloading. Weapon reloads invisible magazine when reloading from backpack. So that's a very minor issue. So basically your weapon's just not going to have a magazine, because you can now reload out of your backpack. But that's not that big of an issue. Scorpius Antares, unable to activate EMP. Well, that kind of makes the whole ship useless, doesn't it? So I guess use a Warlock? Yeah. Quantum effects are breaking HUD UI. So this has been a problem in the PTU, and I guess it carried over into live, where Quantum was messing with HUD elements as well as forced reactions, because, you know, as you move your head, your character's head is moving, so your view is moving. This has been amplified in 323, and it now can sometimes disrupt the ship heads-up display. But I guess you will encounter it when you encounter it. Reclaimer Claw cannot deploy. Power require error message. Workaround. There's a workaround. Press the power button a second time. So if you use a Reclaimer, just power up the Claw twice and it will work. Arena Commander. Squadron Battle. Friendlies showing up as enemies. So that's an Arena Commander bug. Arena Commander Grav Race. All maps. Low gravity can launch players far above the track when hitting bumps or hills. That's not specifically an Arena Commander issue. That's just an issue with vehicle physics in 3.3. And yeah, that's it for the patch notes. There is also a very extensive list of bug fixes as to what has been fixed, but there isn't the full patch notes. There was a lot of technical stuff. They fixed some server crashes, deadlocks, and client crashes, so less crashes, but they brought in new crashes with Vulkan. So I guess one step forward, two steps back on this one, and a list of bug fixes. Not gonna go through those because you're not gonna be encountering them anymore. And yeah, and with that being said, I think I don't know how long the video is gonna be because I'm recording it live. Anyway, so that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I will see you with the next patch notes, probably 3.23.1 when we have a more stable build with Invictus stuff in it. So thank you for watching. Fly safe, and I will see you in the verse and in 3.23.